Welcome to GreenBites, Sustainable Asia's weekly news podcast series. I'm Chermaine Lee.
And I am Khoa Tran. GreenBites delivers handpicked green stories in Asia we think you should know about.
Welcome to our new season. Today, we celebrate the Dragon Boat Festival in Hong Kong. It's going to make sense in a minute, but what if I tell you that this holiday might already be overdue?
Then, given my workload these days, I'd have to agree with you, Chermaine. But since this is a podcast about the environment, I'm going to guess it has to do with climate change and maybe a little bit of superstition?
That's right. Around this time of the year is the start of the rainy season in East Asia, where the Dragon Boat Festival is celebrated in different forms. And it often gets stormy. Natural disasters are much more frequent these days. The festival is meant to fend off bad luck as we enter this season.
Makes sense. It's true that China has been experiencing some pretty devastating weather events lately. Villages have had to battle heavy rainfall since May, which led to floods in some cases. 2 strong earthquakes shook the Yunnan and Qinghai provinces, and 21 ultramarathon runners lost their lives to sudden freezing rain, hail, and high winds in the Gansu province. Other parts of Asia too, down south, the monsoon season in India just started. Last week, a series of thunderstorms hit parts of West Bengal, killing 27 people, most of them farmers still working outdoors when the storm surged. In the slums of Mumbai, at least 11 people, including 8 children, have died in the collapse of a residential building following heavy monsoon rains. This leads to our first story this week, about a recent study that looks into predicting the weather in our unusually disaster-prone times.
The study, led by Dr. Stephen Clements and other researchers, is based in the Bay of Bengal, the northeastern part of the Indian Ocean. The Bay of Bengal is surrounded by India, Bangladesh, and Myanmar, so basically a fifth of the world's population that lives on the coasts and relies on the region's seasonal rain weather for their way of life and economy.
And so, to study patterns in monsoon weather, Dr. Clements and his crew looked for cues on the Bay of Bengal ocean floor. That's right, by drilling 200-meter-long core samples, they were able to obtain a record of the monsoon's effects dating back 1.5 million years. How is this possible? Well, every year, the rain falls on the bay, and since rain is less salty than seawater, it makes the surface of the bay less salty or less saline. The plankton at the surface of the bay dies in a less saline environment. It sinks to the bottom and becomes a layer on the sea floor.
It took scientists around 6 years to compile, graph, and analyze the data from these samples. In the end, they found that high rainfall, indicated by the presence of more plankton fossils in some layers, usually happened after periods when there were higher concentrations of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, all of which is consistent with many present-day climate models for monsoon projections. The difference is that this data set spans about 1 million years.
So what does that mean for the present day? The study helps to build better climate models for monsoons. It is basically consistent with already existing research predicting worse rainy seasons as a result of climate change, and more precisely in this case, as a result of increased atmospheric carbon dioxide. In real life, though, one can hope that such research will end up improving weather planning for the lives of many in developing areas. In other parts of Asia, however, far from muddy fossilized plankton, farmers are taking matters into their own hands.
Our next news bite takes us to the Gobi Desert between northern China and southern Mongolia. The region has received more attention in recent months due to heavy rains blowing its sand to the Chinese capital. In mid-March, Beijing was hit with the biggest sandstorm in a decade. Flights were cancelled, schools were closed, and the skies turned into a Mad Max orange-yellow hue.
If we backtrack a little, we can see that China had already thought about dealing with sandstorms in the past. One way to prevent or minimize sandstorms is to plant trees to act as a buffer by trapping the sand that gets picked up by the wind. However, in the desert, Planting trees isn't always the easiest thing. In the late 70s, China launched a tree planting scheme nicknamed the Great Green Wall, which has quite incredibly managed to grow forests in nearly a quarter of China's total area. That's a sizable improvement from a forested area of less than 10% in 1949.
While China has high ambitions, forest expansion has created some problems over the years. For one, the work is tough and drains a lot of resources like water away from farmlands, creating a competition for space. Some provincial governments even seized farmland just to meet forest coverage targets, so tensions are running high over land use in certain regions. A top-down approach to replace vineyards with trees in Dunhuang is expected to affect hundreds of farmers. With the changing climate and recent events like the sandstorm hitting Beijing in March, the vision of the program became even more elusive, and farmers started to lose hope in mitigating the issue. Climate change caused temperatures in the Gobi Desert to rise between 2 and 6 degrees, which caused more sandstorms, even at tree planting sites.
But farmers haven't given up. CNA reported that a single family had been mobilizing volunteers to plant sweet vetch, which is a flowering bush in the Gobi Desert. Sweet vetch has a survival rate as high as 80%, even in harsh conditions, making it a key tool in fighting desertification.
And although this may be a grim reminder of how hard it is to fight climate change one tree at a time, it is also important to look at the success these tree planters have had over the past few decades and look forward to improving and expanding tree planting initiatives. Perhaps this piece of news should serve as a reminder to urban drillers like us to do our part while people out there in the front lines are doing theirs.
And with that, we've got the last piece of news to end the show. A herd of 15 wild elephants traveling through southern China has been captivating millions of Chinese social media users. Footages of the herd show the elephants making their way across forested areas, including a stunning aerial shot of them napping, but they've also made it to roads and cities. Locals have been trying to lure them away with food back to their habitat, while some were less fortunate and had their property damaged as the herd was searching for food and water. These elephants have traveled more than 400 kilometers from the Chinese border with Myanmar to the outskirts of the provincial capital of Kunming, a city of about 8 million people. The herd is being monitored by authorities and netizens. Their trekking adventure, which is apparently continuing, is a reminder of human activities expanding into their habitat.
So this is all we have for this week's GreenBites. Please share your thoughts with us on our social media platforms with the hashtag #ShareYourBite.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast channels for more content and share our podcast with your friends and family. If you're interested in sponsoring GreenBites or have any comments about our content, we would love to hear from you. Email us using communications@sustainableasia.co or drop us a line on social media. Our handle is @sustainableasia. To those of you celebrating with a day off, have a wonderful Dragon Boat Festival.